Sangye Chodan
Zoye
Soje
Jonam
Chonam La
Lai
Chanjo
Chanjo
Bardo
Bardo Dani
Dani
Gyabzon
Gyabzonje
Je Dage
Dage
Jenzo
Jenso
Jebe
Jebe
Sonam
Sonam
Dolo
Dola
Benje
Benje Sangye
Sangye
Duba
Duba Sho
Sangye
Sangye
Chodan
Chodan Zoye
Soje
Jonam
Chonam Chanjo
Chanjo
Bardo
Bardo Dani
Dani
Gyabzon
Gyabzonje
Je
Dage
Dage
Jenso
Jenzo
Jebe
Jebe Sonam
Sonam Dola
Benje
Benje
Sangye
Sangye
Duba Sho
Duba Sangye Chodan
Kedan
Soje
soje jonam lai janjo
Chanjo
bardo
Bardo
dani
Dani
gyabzo je
Dage
dage
Jenso
jenso
Jebe
jebe sonam
Sonam
je
Dola
dola
Benje Sangye
sanje do
Duba
shu.
Sho Sangye Chodan
Kedan
Soje
soje jonam lai
Chanjo
janjo bardo
Bardo
dani
Dani
gyabzo
Gyabzonje
je dage
Dage
jenso
Jenso
jebe
Jebe
sonam
Sonam Dola
dola
Benje
penje
Sangye
sanje do
Duba
shu.
Sho Senjen Tamje
Dewa
Dewa
dan
Dande
dewe gyudan
Gyudan
denpa
Denpa
gyuji
Semje
simje
Tamje
tamje donge
Dunga Da Dunga
donge
Ye
gen gyudan
Gyudan
dewa
Dewa
gyuji
Gyuje Semje
simje
Tamje
tamje
Dunga
donge
Mebe
mebe
Dewa
dewa da minja
Namida
wari
Wara
simje tamje nyere
Nyere
chada
Chada
nyedan
Nyedan
dawe da nyamla ne vara gyurji dewa dan dewe gyudan denpa gyuji simje tamje donge dan donge gen gyudan dewa Simje tamje dunga mebe ne wada menda wai yuje simje tamje nyere jada nye ay yamla ne vara yuje ne wada deve gyoda demba simje tamje dunga da dunga ge gyoda de vara yuje simje tamje dunga mebe ne wa Simje damje nyere jada nyeda dawe da yamla ne bara gyuru je. Ye chu je me do tam. Je ra ba le je nye de gem bai de. Sangye Zhengu Me De Ye Logun Namda Jen Lai Je Barai Shoy Dhamma Guru Rana Pamniya Daya Me. Yes. From now until enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. May it created in this practice, may I attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. From now until my enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. You have merit created these practice, may I attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. From now until my enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Spirit in this practice. May I attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings never be separated from the love of this. May all sentient beings be free from attachment. All sentient beings enjoy happiness and its causes. And all sentient beings will never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness in its causes. May all sentient beings be suffering in its causes. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias attachment. is crowned and anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers. Mount Meru is circled by the four continents. Surrounded by the sun and the moon. I visualize this Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy the pure light. Edam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami. Ah, Tidong. 남주인의 뒤 바라도 곰도 디스티 주어도 슈마네 대신에 이렇게. 이제 로젠 가도 차비 다가나 컨데스트에 왜 오늘도 지나 차비 컨데스트가 드레 컨데스트
Yaba kunle nam lu jen yun den kuje jen babo, sim jen kunje nye je bo, tam je jen la cha sa lo, zongwa chen bon da ye na sim jen, zongwa da je so kawa che wa sim ye zo che den ze jen zon ju che. Toma tsama la ne, tam je test le shuya de je. Ne da, de mangbo chi ge den da she ne da nga zo. Engyo di lo pen shuya ge ne, boga pe shungwa de. Da di ngen la da di jang da chaya de la da nga zo. 다 감정기 탑재하면도 다 주소기 탑재하면도 다게 이네 공세시 슈게스.
So, first of all, I would like to say Tibetan greetings, Tashidelek, to all of you. And we are having these teachings after a while. And so the gap that we had in between, it was maybe from a monastery side from India and maybe from our side, but however, we weren't able to have regular classes. So for that, Geshe would like to apologize for the gap in distance we had.
얘네 다 드린 경 지탄에 뒤견도 근저 롭션 난 필라. 네 롭션 난 대바이 이거 말라 다 잔다. 지단에 질 애닝아 저 단다 넘버 상계 비추제 되와 직 점불린 딜라 캬바다 단다 단당만 주딜라네 단다 딜랑아 저 롭션 지야게 그거 봐야 돼. 그 겐도 컨디션 좋아인 바데 지나다 캥고르데 당하란 게네. 직 탱고지 수도 직 쇼아이나.
Yes.
점불린 디간 라인은 직 디싱이 기cab네 진을 콘서트 좀 투시 같은 라테네 당원절라 텐데 제게 고가 들어가게 요방한서 상매기 캔셀에 이나양 당한 드링 네 단다 고가 디순데 네 같이 견절라니 탱고지 수도니 슈유스.
Yes. Since you are all, are regular kind of students coming here and about how, we came together to study and practice Buddhism and how we had this great opportunity, our courses, factors, and conditions. You already are aware of that, and especially particularly on this kind of planet, be able to gather at this moment, and it is because of the great gratitude of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. We all know that, but again, Geshe wants to kind of remind from his own, opinion.
어디 제제 되는 다는 진게 달라버도 먼저 단다디 추도 딜도 참바이나 당한서 내게시 되고 계시 심바선함 라기니 다 윤정보 니처럼 냠도 아니 로티낭제 직 간지 테네나 직 제고 남숨도 나 단당한서 나도지 또 당보데 레온드 좀바니 캐나도 제용드 잠발라 아니 직 남베기 제쇼도다 직 소소기 야마 직 투데 컵스컵스이나야 직 제쇼 잠보다 직 네네닐라 근데 나데 교케네 넘버도 직 나랑기 통송 이네데 텔라야나 시다고 총송 다나 신기에 게실라기다 단다 딘데 추조 딘데 주 딘데 게네 다직 나게 직 람덴도 나요바 나신게네 당한조 정말 녀르기 토닝한 저 딜라이니 게실라기 공부 컨디시요한 때나신기 툭툭알랑한조 상매 냠로기 토네니 제알란 베츠 슈엘란 이치기 기도라이 리고 슈엔 마란지아니 직디 돌라니 강 두두다 강요한게니 나랑 더 직텔라 가주데 투비링 델라니 덴데 제알란 베츠 슈기인스
And especially about this center, as you all know, late founder Geshe Jimbo Sonam, and he did his best, beginning with the founding the center and then giving regular teachings, basically kind of about everything related with the Buddhist tradition, and when Geshe came here for the first time, the way center and the people here invited him and met him, he felt like you are already familiar with the Buddhist traditions, the custom, and so he saw that kind of aspect, and he was very glad to have sort of, you have already sort of adapted in Buddhist culture tradition, so um, and so here we'll all together as late Geshe has his own mission and objective, and we'll all do together to do our best, to achieve his mission and objective for this center. And I will also request, to all of you to do your best to participate. And likewise, I will do my best, and everything to accomplish his mission and objectives.
어디 제 때는 다 나진 게다 이슬라게 다 동원 삼을 거네 다즉 근데 즉 당가리 감전당 지단에 이겐 콘라이니 즉 충두네니 러벌럼냐 나사당 데서 오마타산제 다 나진 게니 충두네니 즉 주사당 동봉은 당가리 감전다 슈여레 당가조 충주네니 가조 충주 거서게 야 진짜 gem바레데 yen 냠도에네 지단에 아주 도야당 제야당 된데기 디요레 다 나진 게 이게 냠도는 직딩을 타만 디슈를 제에서네 니폰 중일랑아 터전 요가 수견에 파길라 네 자산 추설을 배진하죠 터전 바다냠도 제야 이보급 총송 디젤에게 이제는 디젤 잘매 편서 되기도
Yes.
다 나진 게 겐겐에 두고 나진 게 이게 코너지 다시 도공 사모 컨디지요 바디 투투야게 르든 나진 제네다 직 여지 근들레를 못 쳐다 냉가리 감찬라 된데 다직 딜라이네 된데 게네 직 제야게 두겐다고 다는데 그 요래 다나지 피요 나진게 다직 대 부야대야 직그 현재는 도공 같이 몰라네 니네 된데지 직 된데 나이사레 나랑게 삼게도 시즌 간데 인사 가데에서 와나 당하랑도 수이단 수인바이나 직 치외라 젠데 지단에 여바 레데 당하죠 마나가죠 로체와이나 로키아셀레 슈그레 가라죠 디슈라 에네안직 균 경관단들이 라 상로탄 투셈 시운도 삼발라 아직 ngari 감전 저도제나 지시 ngari 감전 마동 바당 다나진 기인데 직 림베진에 용대야 지로 디인도 삼발라 딘데지기다 직 공제기에 딘데 메나삼데 ngara 딘데 상게도스
And likewise, late Geshe-la's uh, objectives, profound objectives, uh, about those Geshe himself when he was very young, his early childhood, he stayed at Naru Kanzen in Goma Monastery and studied there. And although Geshe is much senior to him, Geshe, but he had occasions where they kind of interact. And the last time he met him was in 2012 when Late Geshe was down in Louisville, Gomang Center. So he met there. That was the last time, last meeting. And the reason why Late Geshe was having, had this, a great kind of objective and long-term kind of mission was uh, in order to kind of, achieve that, he wants to maintain this center as long as, it can. So therefore, he kind of sought, help from Kundalini Rinpoche as well as Ngari comes in. And then, and, and as a human, it is part of our kind of nature, reality, our lifespan being around 100, we have to, live and pass down sort of legacy. And so Geshe wants to kind of continue his legacy and just pass down so that, he can help Ngari Kamse as well to continue. And that's what Geshe thinks about late Geshe.
디제 되네 당하랑기 루기도 그것도 시슈바이나 당하랑 계사데 상가제 야랑 보유게 지발에 계시다 계신 남자 당원도 정말 보유 상가제 인난이다 직대 상가 모네스에서 롱바텔레게 지금 국회 개주 개니라 되네존 따직 로충드네 로 주직 주니스 버동안 보일레데 되는 망아니 직 단다 로초라 트레지 보갑지라지 주국주 공안에 송제다 오만타상라 로존체네 단다 버도 된데스 다 되나 지단 로존체 교림들라 교림보 망보여데나다 근데 망보시 뭐가지 다 강다장 로 용다 로 타상라 대다 파시망다 로 숨주시 된데 시링랑아 대샤
Mm.
얘는데 로종기 교림 제바이나 지단에 타상기 롭달라 진데게 데네마 타상 랑기에네 진다 진다 아니 주tin 지요레 주tin 데네마 길로부터 로툭스 데데진 탐바인 데네네 데슈데라니 규메라 로직시 데데 트렌지 데네 다테 데데시 인생하랑기 로종치 교림데
Yes. And briefly about, Geshe himself. He was born in Zanskar area in Ladakh, the same area where late Geshe and Geshe Namgyal is from. And within that Zanskar, there is a place called Mune in 1982. And then he stayed in his birthplace up to age 11, 10, 11. Then after that, went down to South India to join monastery and Tripungoma Monastery. That was in 1995. And then in total, he spent around 30 years Komang Monastery studying. And within the sort of process of learning, start with, the Komang secondary school, and then join a monastic, education system spent around 17 years. And after that, the great exam of Gelugpa tradition spent around 6 years. And after that, Kyume Monastery, he spent, 1 year. So that was sort of the process of education that he had gone through.
어디 되지? 되네 당한 저 드링 디갈라 애니 단당한 저 세니말라 로진 줘야 다 단다. 딩에 내게 시켜주기 애니 다 특심부터 오래되나 당한 저 로종 쳐야 돼. 디디 단다 당보 로리데 로리기 코르데 남자데 특보야 당 지단이가나 당봉에니 따직 된데 용 좀 발라 삼로콜 좀 봤다. 소도 로리도 삼로콜 로리 당 도라다 다리 된데도 삼로콜 선데 되나니 케치쇼데 체도데 지단이 교신이 남데 샤베 티용도 삼바다 테네 마양에 나랑기에 직 로전 시엔 삼바가 샤말라 이게 넘버 티도 삼발라 루리데에 직 개침보 임바 중 차장단 되어 여바 된데 이제 네 칼롭람든 난게도 된나진 견소에 딩엘라 티요 되나 다른 양주 먼저 남부 로전 남부 측이 로전 제야들라 양주 이 로랑에 바체 최고야 되네 칼침보도 된데 통계도 딩도 삼발라 땅은 직 가져 투마도 마다와 쟁아주 소소소소기 장내는 로라 가져 저 투마도라 된데지 땅에 땅은 대체보세
Yes.
아래
And the topic of our classes, although this was already covered last time by Geshe Kejok, but the topic awareness and knowledge, Lorik in Tibetan, is one of the topic that Geshe had idea before coming here, and Lorik likewise collected topic. Those are the short text that his teacher has, advised, instructed him to teach, because these are the texts that is, basically connected with almost every other Buddhist text and scriptures. So although you have studied it, but he thinks it is important, kind of, to sort of. Because of its importance to revise and study over again.
어디지로 되는 당한테 단다 디간라 되는 마 지단에 단다 나베 체릭도 군딜라야 되던 당보다 니버니제 되는 니버들라 인지나 다만 요라 니버디제
아주 엔진
인지나 니버들 당보 니버디
예 말은 엔진을 직 마셔. So Geshe was referring to the the text that is available in Tibetan, and in Tibetan Geshe was referring to, if you know Tibetan, there's volume 1 and volume 2. So this is in the volume 2, but in the Tibetan, we talked earlier, they are short, medium, great. So there are 3 versions. So there are many different texts in Tibetan. But he was asking me in English. In English, we have just volume 2nd, right? So in volume 2nd, the nature of mind. Dinyamdu Geshe tanda kunjengi di tiere.
디나는 군jen지 로리데나 마지니
Jargeja
타인데
tiere.
디나라 스니 이어와도 천이도
Nore.
고사를 삼나 혹시 디나랑 데딩이 때도 좀바다 천이도 당고서 도도를 집어도를 다시 고사를 삼나 디나만가도 천이란 다시 전다도 오세요 어디서 때문에 디나마 테스트에서 지치고 딱이 되게 당한 줄 뒤쳐
So I was asking him about the original Geshe suggested, the classic text by Kunken Jamen Shepa, and the text is just called Kunken Taju Analysis by Kunken. So it is about awareness and knowledge, but it has a lot of, as the topic says, analysis or analytical. So he talked about that, and then I was asking him about that text, that he's going to cover that text as well. So he said he read both texts, what was presented in the English version and in the classic text, and it's almost kind of same. But if he needs to go, however, more kind of closely at such as like a definition of a particular, a particular definition of particular thing, and then kind of the way it is presented in the classic text, we can refer back to the Kunken's text. But the Kunken text, the good culture so the Kunken text, when Geshe first kind of show me the Tibetan text, obviously I need to look into English translation, whether it is available or not. So in English, it is that the whole text is not available. Just like our last text, if you attended classes, this text, there was the Kunjan text is not that long. It's about 60 pages, but the first 9 pages is only translated in English by the same author, Elizabeth Napper. So only 9 pages Tibetan. In English, I think there are 33, because in the English, the way it was translated was, if you look at the Jeffrey Hawkins, UMA website, it has a Tibetan script, then English translation, then note. So it's very kind of helpful but lengthy. So in English, both Tibetan and translation include, there are about 30 pages, but in Tibetan, only 9 pages are available. So there's I can send later if people are interested, or Geshe needs to look at that. And the other thing is, because of Jeffrey Hopkins' translation, you will see a lot of differences how translator use the terminology in this book as well as so. But we will primarily, use. I will primarily use vocabulary translated in this book that we are going to use. Well, this shusha khunzu khan dida dichi yorag shila. The journal sik manda than yore. The long as so sik yorg share the tip the one tip the one
어디 지단에 단다디 세리 나베 세리 때로 근데 됐던 단다디 나라에는 디도 값도 지원은 값 북직스도 뭐발라에 다나 지금 어떤 단다디 티비 때 쇼래 디나는 감 가운데에는 지금 있고 거야 개체도 들렸다네 제가 이제는
said another
온데 지시 쇼신
북치
지단에 값 쭉쭉
뷰디날로
디나라다
디날 야마 디날 툭 마시면도 대전 툭
디나나 방이요
yes
네 진짜는 셀 온데도 저는 어떻게 지고
yes so he was talking about the future our classes, and in Tibetan the text he has, it has 15 different parts, much longer than, of course, this one. So, but in English, we have in this book 6 parts, right? So, in the future, we can also continue with the same text, and And I suggested him earlier, when using this text, you can use this text as a basis, but along with that, it would be good to have a classic text on, say, like, mental factors or opinion awareness. So the classic text, it is presented in much more detail, more closely, so if needed, then he can go back and use that. And if book is available, it's good. If not, then we can just straightforward, so that I thought that would be kind of, along with classic text, and using this would be much helpful.
아니 되네 어디래 되네 다 다나 지금 저 롭센 지단에 지 롭센 컨디지기 애니 지 장와이 나래 다 지금 롭센 딜라이니 롭센 데 제바보다 롭센 데기 애니 간 규림 도 어디 뭐데 치 제거래 되나 다 단다다 어디도 차와이 미시기 지 슈거에 말이 정말 괜찮 바래 경우로 지를 못 지기디 대샤바 디기 공기 숨시 다 레제 티 좀 미시기 슈모고
Yes. And when studying any Buddhist text, the tradition is that we start from the greatness of the author and how and why it is composed. But for that, we won't go into that part because we already know that this is, a vision of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and how it was composed. There's a whole section at the beginning of the text, so we won't go through that.
되는 지단에 군전 로리도 이제 차바이나 또 군전 차셔봐서데 단단다 네 고만 타상기에는 즉 로좀 지하기에는 즉 차베디 상 망쳐기래 다 차가 이 여바시데 공원에 디레 공기 제셔보 군전 지단에 군전 꾸텐 단다 꾸텐 두바레 꾸텐 당보기 제샤베기네 차베 사디나라 용 차상지 요레 딜라니 로좀 체게나미 다직 통다고 망보기 제진바레데 단다 또 로종 제신바에니 단다 니동 맞음스 텐데니 로종 제신바 단다 요레스 게 먼저 신세 담바 게 콘라이나 저산딜라 로종 다 단다 디기에니 로첸딜라이니 직 로종 나네니 텐데 텐진바 텐데 단 저와 요레 지산바 당에디 쉬시데 랑용이
Yes. The classic text that we talked about by Kunchen. So the Kunchen, his whole name is Kunchen Javan Shepa, and the right now the reincarnation is 6, but the text was composed by the first Kunchen Javan Shepa, and the text is called, as I said earlier, Kunchen Taju, the analysis by Kunchen. So, but it is analysis on the awareness and the knowledge, and the Kunchen Javan Shepa basically is the author of the Gomang documents. So in Gomang Monastery, they study the text by Kunchen, and most of the texts were by Kunchen. And so this particular text, that short text in the past has been studied by several thousand scholars, monks, and still the same text is studying at the monastery by around 2,000 monks, students. And late Geshe has also went through the same kind of process of learning the same text by Kunchen. And because of that connection, he wanted to kind of bring up this short text by Kunchen.
어디서 지단에 본데 챙기고 내가 저 지단에 대사카나라 라발롬냐 나단도시 도도시 시바이나 지단에 지에네 자외기 책도 망체 개중 자가 개백이 숑체 대강라니 대화양 자직 자가 개백이 숑 요르데 디저 맞아 자와도 제제 되네 다 이네 직 자상 만다와 라인 직 제바보 페나 고만도 오제나 이네 군전 자셔바다 다네 자상 셴바데 소임바이나 직 카칼라 자산 직 레니세 직과 다오도지 예 많이 봐네 군전 셔바다 다네 벤천 소나브라 바다 딘디 직 만다와 딘디 게는 직 슝 딘디 라인에 로송 딘디 난고데스 온 딘디 어디디 다 직 야마 저바줘야 당 딘디 게 시술 메팅 발라이네 직 그도지야 망보지 딘디 시게네 다 용게 사데스 도디시 쇼샤이나
And briefly about the way the commentarial text are studied in Buddhist monastic institutions. Generally, the main text would be a text by Indian masters, but then commentaries, there are Indian commentaries as well. But for the monastic institutions, they have particular author for the particular monastery, and some have the same author. But in Gomang case, Gomang Monastery, the author of the Gomang document would be Kunchen. So it's called Kunchen's document. So they study mainly, primarily Kunchen's document, and likewise, other monastery would study documents by the great scholar Pinchen Sonam Tawas. And because of different commentary by different author, and then from there comes the different interpretations of the root text. And because of the different interpretation of the root text, takes to kind of then monastic intense debate, which one is more valid or not. So
so DJ that in my show, which you can let that in my dinner, you are the Pina logic in my DJ. That's which it puts some balata. Tanda Tigala, you can learn Tanga subject the ropes situation at Tolush. You can learn Namja, you can niche Shegoro Chitan. You'll learn, but you can learn Shebakoran Sambushi. It's in Tichore. And it's Chitani Lori Tela in Bainatanda and Lori Koran de la Chavane, Lori Tunche, Chitani Lola and Yawa and I am Tuxi Chito, Topa Tolo, Matobelo, Tema Semin, and then Lori Tundu Yawat, Lori Tundu Yawat, Pocheto Match, Monjech, and then Tishio. And was it some Jones, then this two Yegito.
Yes. Beginning with the outline, the big outline would be inserting mind and awareness. So we have to go back about on the big outline there is a object and the subject. There's a big outline, and when we talk about the object, it talks about the object of the observation of the mind, and when we talk about the subject, talk about the subjective mind, and therefore mind or awareness or so too big. And then within the subject in Tibetan we use lo rik, and in English it is translated as awareness and knowledge. So the awareness is knowledge. Awareness and knowledge is then further categorized into, as many of you know, into 7, into 6, and then again they are shorter forms. So there are different ways of classifications of the mind of consciousness itself.
Tadi shung la dina ji yena mena kastara dina la tadi ichen lo namja sheba la chil yuchen lo am sheba ni pena sorwa dewa tang tongal semje ni kanang tang kyonang tijin du nyenga la tabe jingnang tang ne che la tang konto nye du la tenwe chaksem sem dongal chen sem chen dongal wala mikbe nyingje so nyongso ji ri tang Tenzin tu junji me to zebo na so ji kan ba tu mi xie dang shen xie dang rolmen da yang da nyen bo la so na xie ba de bo bo xie ba dang ne di sam ju di ten ju xie ba de bo ma gi no wa ten de lo da te yin na te a yin ko nyam do yun sen sam be lo so nangi nyoye che nam yebe shebe ngo yende se ta chida gi lo yesen ba to de tin lo na la chiri yuchen lo la sheba kande tsura tsudan ro de ro di ta ran din sin ta ran din yore
Yoro in ju da lang yore.
din sin shu sha wa na chi tsura de la so ta din sin tsura de wa ta tongal ene sem ji khanang da kyonang de jin de nya da la ta be jinang da me je la ta ye khong nye lo la da be chaksem ene sem la dongalwada dongalwa me be ningshe so nyongso ge ri da tejin de meto zebo so na so ge kan pumba to me she da she da romo da nye so tebe na she da wang she da ne di sam jong di ten jong she ba de ngal ki nywa tembe lo da te da te ina te ko nyam de pinsen sambe lo so na ki nywa che nam yebe se di ga so sheba korangi di to nyonso do chi sungi do ina jin di chi mo to na.
Yes. So we will start with the book, and if you have a book, it's on page 39, unmarked page 39, The Nature of the Mind. And the book starts with the general presentation of how kind of mind or consciousness sense or feels. It talks about that. So, like I just said, we will just read, and then you will get, the point of what it's saying here. Um, now we will, I'm just reading the fourth sentence. Now we will present the mind, the subjective, quote and unquote, subjective side. In general, mind or consciousness refers to inner experience. This includes feelings that are pleasant or painful, states of mind that are happy or miserable, emotional experiences such as fear of danger, anger toward those who inflict harm, affectionate attachment to close relatives, and compassion when observing suffering sentient beings. It includes sense consciousness, such as visual consciousness, that sees a vase filled with beautiful flowers, or an auditory consciousness that hears the sounds of music or singing. It also includes cognitions that remember previous experiences, as in quote and unquote, I remember this, or quote and unquote, I thought this, and cognitions that consider reasons and think, quote, if this is the case, then that must also be the case, unquote, and so on. Now, they would do
어디 디제다 디가 믹스기 양데 디게 다른 양 믹스기 대시 잡은 다른 디서로
also.
인데스네 다딘 마디 디용도 셰베 모도 어디 컨데 있는다 이도 지기 디체기도 되나 dom도 어디 와라 천이 디 시작이 되셔
Yes.
셰베 모도 수젠다 수젠면 비초 강소나야 칠셰바 요바니 녀외 투방에 녀외 투방에 리핏 투급이 네식 means 다디나 지미시잉아 미 도스 땡고자 말하러 하든
Yes.
되나봐
Also.
일단은 로 탐에 직 망보식 리핏 투급바 이거 요도 대다 셰바라 릭민도 망도 요지 대다 유겐 망보라 때네 중하다 로 망보시다 델니 요버시 로 망보시다 델니 요버시고 시고에서 송게되사 다디기 기단기 로기를 뭐 디르바데스 디슈샤나
Yes. Um, so when Geshe was reading in Tibetan, he was asking, basically, is that okay just to read and, to kind of let you sort of know it, and or does it need extra explanation? So he was asking if, so the Quran so while reading, if you have any questions, you can just stop and ask, and so the first part it talks about kind of the way of different feeling or sensation. So if I read the remaining part of the last paragraph, whatever position one holds, that the mind is material or immaterial, in general, what we call consciousness is known to exist based on experience. So it does not necessarily need to be proved through reasoning. Nevertheless, there are many types of subtle mental states that must be proved through a reasoning.
개발 된 말로면 되는 나 되는 마디치네 되는 마 첨부가 되고 또 보시고 넘버 산제 번남 로단 셰바 20 진 모두 셰바다지 르직 신도 타데바 뇽소기 예당 왕베 셰바 이세 더분은 로암 셰바 셰 릭직도 되게 유다 유전에서 제 유전지 공수做바 제 오나 셰바단 수기 유전지 취니 밖에 제주 강인 제나 기비 뭐버들 도발로 샘토르 교바다 샘테 주쟁기 취남 민다로 무슨 가와다 전시 바이오소 텐디 로 로장네 내가 방 터두게 되와 남 토벌 교배 산제 반남기 로라니 챙어모네 생기 꼴라 도주 신도 시모 집에 소타리라 남배 흉남수 생감집에 꼴라 셰바시 예바오네 데다 인라 대한 좀 니지 취수 제발레 다다 취수 제발레 제데 디 콩당이고 봐 다다 디 버릇나 주셔나
Was the Geshe Pu, the Geshe didn't do with the law, shall law and the jig, then engine and law didn't do a puna lomoche. Geshe to the chiguna. So, I was suggesting Geshe, if not needed, he can just tell me read from this to that, in Tibetan, then I can just read in English. That might save time, instead of him reading, all in Tibetan.
Can I ask you a question?
The last paragraph on the same page, someone may ask, what is the difference between consciousness and physical things? In general, matter and consciousness are differentiated by whether they are obstructive, established as clear and aware in nature, merely experiential in nature, and capable of knowing objects. Many earlier Buddhist masters identified the essential nature of consciousness as the opposite of obstructive physical things. Lacking obstructivity, consciousness has the quality of clarity, in that external and internal things can appear to it. It has the quality of knowing its object, and it has the nature of mere experience. Thus, when identifying the nature of the mind, the sutras teach that the mind is difficult to catch hold of. Being intangible, it is weightless, like a firebrand spinning around. It does not rest, like the constantly moving waves of the ocean. It is unstable, like a forest fire. It ignites all deeds of body and speech. Like a great river, the mind forcefully draws along a vast number of internal movements of awareness and so forth. In general, the mind is the main factor involved in accomplishing the goals that living beings desire. The mind, unlike physical things, is difficult to identify. Yet, if we train our mind, then in reliance on mindfulness, meta-awareness, heedfulness, and so on, we will attain both temporary and final happiness. Therefore, in the Buddhist tradition, the system of analyzing the mind in great detail flourished from the earliest times. This is also the main reason why Buddhist texts have extensive explanations about psychology. Yes. And in this section, probably you have, known it from earlier classes as well. The text is identifying what is the nature of the mind, or what is mind and what it does. And in the classic text, it talks more about, there's a more analysis of, what mind is, and in connection with the body, or matter, which one is more kind of dominant. But we won't be going into those,
지단에 다 단다 로스에서 뭐 로디 코랑이 ngoi 진단데 녜고에 개침부진 사람 다 로스에서 뭐 단다 군견 찬스베 제바네 로기 찬이들라 네 리과데샤이 리과 다 지단에 다 로지 찬이들라 리과데다 리다 아니 땅은 리과스나다 되게 된다데 컨디지레 즉 율데네 즉 다파 파존의 즉 파존의 파 디치 제가 제제 또 디체바이나 어디디 직수나
yes, with Quinty Koran Pejati because you're Europe.
yes 어디 뭐 담보 권한을 들어도 요리 아직봐
So about, what is important here is, able to identify what is in Tibetan word law, or what is awareness, or what is awareness, or what is consciousness, or what is mind. The very the fundamental thing here is to able to identify, when we say mind, what is consciousness. And when we look back at the Quincan, the Quincan analysis, he just used one word for the definition. And he says, knower is the definition of awareness. So knower is the definition of the awareness, just one word. So what does knower really mean, when he says knower?
다 되게 천지들라 아니 sherab tang sema se de shudo
No, ndo.
da sherab la na tinji de da ran do de shu na sherab na sema tinji sha ge do
Yes.
ine ta na jin digi ne ta ji digi tunji ba she lo zena she lo sheba ripa salwanam tunji tunji ki namdang de la de sto
Yes.
어디제 디제 zambalata chidani lose ya korande lode la ene chik tambo sugu logi tonjito logo chidani lode kandeji la ngwenzi manzi di hakoya de kechimbo insar
Yes.
da salje da chidani da ripa chigo je da chidani wadi la ene yeba je na salching ripa da sawa la de ngodi kandeji sa ripa la de ngodi kandeji sa kinzo kengoya de kechimbo insar
Yes. So, I'm looking at the Quintian's text, the way it is presented in a classic way. It starts with the definition, and then after definition talks about synonyms. And then after synonyms, so it has a kind of order that it is presented, unlike the book that we have. So in the definition, as we said earlier, he just used one word. Knower is the definition of awareness. So here, again, we need to understand what is knower means here, And so the illustration that he used for the awareness or the knower or the mind is he used wisdom. Wisdom is one illustration. Another illustration he used valid cognition, pramana. These are the illustrations of the mind. And then synonyms, which you have heard a lot often. Synonym for the mind, we have, in English translated as awareness, consciousness, knower, illuminator. These are all equivalent, all have the same meaning, when talking about the mind and consciousness. And again, in Quintian text, he just used one word. Knower is the definition of awareness. But in more general, which we will come later, probably you have heard the same thing, awareness with clarity, or awareness, clear awareness, it is much longer definition meaning. So it has not only awareness, but there's also clarity part, clear part. So again, we need to understand, what does clarity means in the context of the consciousness or mind.
Chidani sheba ni sheba la na ta chik ya yungul yoba jila ngozin chik nangora. Chidani ta chik salwa la di zambala nga zu peda wala tanda parnang tang ta na chi nga zu ki shego ene chik yama thonga ki ene chik diyo tizu ki thonga yowa tende chiki ene tunji to uji samlo tang ku zara wandini chi insar upe sunga.
So when we hear word, Tibetan word shepa, or Salwa, the Rigpa language. Awareness. It has the general image that you should be having that might be helpful is when we talk about awareness, it has a quality of kind of movement. There's always something kind of movement. And when you hear the word clarity or clear, it has a quality of like a space or like a glass mirror, the reflection able to have. So these are some other kind of things that you can help to create an image of in your mind at least what this word means.
Sanji ki sombe che di pa chi an me cha yo pon son so ba rang ge sen ne yo don de ne sanji de ba je ki bu de de don ke ta ta di ki chik di ki dom do da di che ki engine lo sana di ro chik di ki don da do de tang zo chi yo da di pa ma che wa che yo pon son so ba che ne rang ge sen yo su ta chi rang ge sen de ne chi ledo gendo dende lewa chene ene ta chik sanji ge dende chewa de ene sanji ge temba yin is sumo do dende chene ta ne sanji ge temba la ene di sanji ge ene ko ban thoba la dende yore sung shana de to ada de sem dulwa madulji wangi ta chidani sangazu tanda korea kurande sem dul madulji wang sem madulji wangi ngazu korea tin zamba sem dul madulji wangi negab ta thaktuji dedo namchu sem madulji wangi ngazu negabji ene tongante chung sem dulwa ina thaktuji ngazu thaktuji ene kobang ene karanan sanjiji kobang dende thobyaade ene tandadi chikdegi ene sungido.
Yes. So I'm reading continuously where we stop, page 40, middle of the page. For example, in the Buddha's own Dharma path, it states, do not commit any evil, practice supreme virtue, thoroughly tame your mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha. Both the happiness and suffering that arise in relation to beings' desired goals finally depend on the functioning of the mind, for it's owing to the force of having one's mind tamed or not tamed that temporary or lasting happiness and suffering arise. You have probably heard this often, the words, do not commit any evil, practice supreme virtue. Basically, what this entails is that, we can sort of destroy, diminish our own, fallacies or afflictions through taming the mind. So the true word here is tame and not tamed. So if you tamed your mind, ultimately you can attain the Buddhahood. It can lead to the enlightenment. If you don't tame your mind, you will have suffering that is ongoing right now, temporary suffering. So it very much comes down to taming, or often called training the mind, or not training, depends on that, whether you will have lasting happiness or suffering.
지단에 단다디기 식대에 좀바기 송인 지단에 디 뒤줄된도 미 단다간도 여기 넘버저 차이나 망책이 칼라 식식이 하람 예버도 오지데 지단에 디 식대에 전다 진조다 아니 직 뒤견동의 소속이 이라인에 직 삼로도 땅토바에나 디대양 이거 침보다 근도 침보 영화지에 상매기에는 셈랑에 디네 네토바에나 야고도 직슈나.
Yes. And it would be helpful if you have this, words sort of, learn by heart, because this is one of the most common words that monks often recite, often contemplate upon, and something that is very common, and therefore it is helpful if you kind of have this in your mind.
어디지로 되는다 지단이 딩엔이 그돌라 다디 직티야 데티서 딩엔에 라인이 단다 강 라인이 딩엔이 로단 트레베니 티워도 단 데데 유에스니 직티나 지체 되는 디보르들 지단이 땅하나기 때 딩엔랑 나나 삼로도나 카레 포선라나 디나라 티워나 징기 직 랍데와나 디사레 삼삼도 지 포선데 이나 다 젤라니 직텔라양 직 소송원에 직 도도도 지네 직 슈고사레 어디 디제 딩에 지단이 단다 디디에는 지단 남바싱이 보이 시간지 많이 딜라이니 직로용도 zam발라 직 상마 고대오다 데리도 오지 손데 삼삼라다 데리 양디 요르데 근데 대샤지 직슈나
thus injitol thana di gyuna thana shons kode oche di gyosha da so kode oche thana. So Geshe was saying, of course, if you have any questions, you can just stop and ask. And he was kind of wondering about the way of his teaching, and okay.
Or asked, can you give an example of a subtle state accessible by reasoning?
sim tamu기 내가 any gumzenge tonege 하고 되라 그래. 근데 gumzenge tonege 녜셰녜게 sim tamu기 내가 근데 요르에 스페페샤나 근데 요르로도 gumzenge ton에 sim tamu 내가 하고 하려고 셰라고 했나.
샘트럼 저모제도 삼바당아조에 직게 다 시갈라가 이게 되서로 디인들뭐 디견전데 컨디지다 디선 디체나스나 단다디 가서 투담라 주기도 투담도 주 내가 되네 딘디시데 단다 딘디시로 디자시나 수모도 딜레라고 디미도 대상 딜라인이 당아도 제바체 간데로 지단 어디
근데 제바신 gumzenge tonege 레베 요래 셰 요래라고 해서
디네 직 단당아도 제바체네 다직 지단에 당아도 직마 우체와다 아니 종사와레스 라고로 다데사 세리비 제바 제도 잠발라 돈에 다니마 투담나 니마 같이 쉬운데 잠발 직 삼삼라 직 고쇼게도다 다나 진지 직 덴데기 따센 따직 단정한 저 조고디서 먼저와 아니 소바티야다 덴데도 중고다 덴데 어디지 배제다 되래 아마도 양시 양시프라티고네 셀랑야 따네티스
Yes. The subtle, consciousness or mind. One sort of illustration that we use is at the time of dying. The consciousness becomes much subtle, and at that moment, as many of you know, meditative state, the subtle mind, and so as you know, from Buddhist point of view, the consciousness is at the subtle moment. The person is not dead, and but from the scientific point of view, or clinically considered as a dead, and so. 진짜 뭐란 저어듯이 된데 쌤 타면 내가 지어라. 들 금제 권에게 아니 시행토야라고 그래. 랩토야 nhập 토야라고 그래. 근데 요래를 저어대.
아 믹스기타 지다 다디라 지다네 다디 네 당한조 곰게 지다네 파게다 나지 되죠 치도서 말하다 나다 되어도 차도라 나나야 아직 곰게네 된데도 다디 된다 된데 망보여도 다디 에 슈라양 서오도 된데고 는 시마질라는 게 되죠 지다네 단당한조 샘프모단 된데기 좀 망치워지 나나라 뒤치고라
Yes.
근데 지슈샤나 단다디
So when we talk about generally, the subtle consciousness of mind, it comes more in the Vajrayana or tantric, practice. So the practitioner, through the practice of meditation or contemplation, can go through or reach such level of subtlety. And I was asking more specifically about, through reasoning. And so Geshe was saying, through more kind of meditative or contemplative process. But about this, he said he can explain more later. No, so he was talking about the way of his format or structure of his teaching. So when he was reading Tibetan, the way he felt about the text was that it's easy to read, easy to understand. So just reading and without giving explanation for him seems to be enough and sufficient, and he understands. And then later he might need to kind of summarize and give you kind of what's the point of this paragraph or so. He might be thinking about that, and I was telling him that is basically the same in English. This text, the way they present it, try to make it easy to read without using philosophical jargons and terminologies that we see in the other text. So that was that he was saying earlier. So we'll take a break here, and after the break we'll have discussions. Any questions?
Yeah. Slowly.
So I want to clarify.
Sure.
You're saying that mind in this text is synonymous with consciousness.
Yeah, didn't Tenzin mi namra chora dambe kunje di nalo tanda namra dina lo sheba rikpa sewa Tenzin ro wala de ondel keji chigdo kotowa inji solle tharam peje
다 어디 디다 당한테 벤치기 임바다 당한테 디나라 이 군전 제시바기 디가라 송나라 다란데 송샤다 벤치 임바나진다 나도 제바시하기 내도 차대로
yes
벤치 임바다 디나라 차베나 송도 지다네야 망치 다른 킬링
yes
어디 분지레시 분지.
So synonyms, the text by Quintin, awareness, consciousness, knower, illuminator. And so Geshe was saying that here it says, these are all synonyms and equivalent, but whether in fact these are same or not, you can sort of take into your analysis,
단다 디나 다나지 배전낭라 다 단당한 또 신이 두기로 와 지난이 레레레레 라인이 디게니 그런 조에니 직모도 나 천이도 여 천이요 천이단데도 요래야 다실라디 지난이 지나라 용기.
So the text kind of begins with saying that these are all equivalent, same name, but in the classic text usually it will go term by term, its meaning, how and why it is equivalent, but we'll see whether that will come in this book or not.
This line 다 직다와 있는 안 직하고.
So maybe after going through several kind of pages, it might become more clearer. Sure. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
그다음에 그거 이제 디나라 여기
The 인지도를 나 컨솔 라이 슈고 맛 겨루면도.
So if you're on a Facebook.
당시라 지단 다디 마로 비심바 다고는 뭐 지금 때려요나 요나 지금 다 오다. 제 자동으로 체인데라.
가진 저 도교도 디날 비게 인지니가 요라. 그래서 게셰 가르사메데 디나로. 로리 잠벨로 셰데. 기나로. So the last one, Geshe was saying he can look into other text. Hopefully, maybe we can find another text, classic text with English translation available. The one that we went through is, as many of you know, right? There's a short text which is also about awareness, and these two translations are same. As you know, lineage, Jeffrey Hopkins' lineage. So, but if you go into this book and another book, you might find a different word, different terminology. So through that, you might get different sense or understanding. I don't know. Yeah. 결혼 직 가족이 결혼했다 네 결혼했 직벌에 너 근데 양 디나로 직만 오신 직 만다르샤 근데 미세 샘샘 중간에 대 직슈 되도 제발 슈팅도. Any other questions or so you can also if you have any ideas about, we were talking earlier, the structure format of the teaching, how it is more beneficial, for you all when we're going through this text. And so if not, we'll maintain the same. Geshe will tell me which paragraph to read. I will read in English so that you can get sort of detail, of the text. And then he will give you summarize the important kind of, commentary. And if there's additional that is needed, he can do that, as well as whenever it is needed to kind of, reference back to the Quintin's text, he can do that as well, especially on definition, synonyms. Quintin 제한시바 소래로도.
근데 어디에 단단히 뭐 그게 제한시 봐도 단단 인간의 쇼가나 지금 도망가나 자산 첨부지 자산 지단 자산 첨부 되기에는 다직 차고만 다
이제 다 보러.
이제 다 보지 다디나 차고만 저 도와 오마 퍼진 다 상마지 다 지기어다 자산 디어 어디에 시작했지 뭐.
So generally, Quintin, the whole name is Quintin Javansheba. He is considered as the author of the Gomang documents. So in Gomang Monastery, if you are studying the text, probably you will be studying the text commentary by Quintin. So Quintin has, a commentary for all 5 major subjects. Middle way philosophy, perfections, transcendental wisdom, as well as Abhidharma, Pramana. So he has a commentary for all, and Gomang is sort of specialized in Quintin's document. And additional to that, if you look at the UMA Institute, Jeffrey Hopkins, his specialization sort of field is translating Quintin's, books into English, but not all are available. Many are. Tanda along this.
Going through the text.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. That's good to know. Yeah. 뭐란 뒤편다고 들었어.
이 슈랑은 저 단다디 sembat 간주 스토어에나 서체티만 이 도도도데 간주 디치고시 담아담아
네.
이게 지금에도 담아서 넘소원에서 지금 니네들
Yes.
호주 제대야 단데 도고이나 조수된 이제고.
Yes. So he was saying it's good to know, and then with that he will give you the summarized version or the additional information that is needed, and so that would be hopefully helpful.
If Geshe could give us an idea of the material he plans on covering, that would allow us to read in advance.
Yeah, we talked that about earlier. 근데 뭐랑 콘솔 되는 야구도 사다나 가정에 기실 주는 시대. 슝마 사님은 쇼랑 가져내 가져봐도 되지긴 봐. 다 드링이 되게 직는 기실로 지금 삼지로 실례라 가져 찾아래. So we talked that about earlier kind of spreading basically the topic on each Sunday and how much he's going to cover. And I had that format made, but not kind of completely, because we are wondering how much he will be able to cover.
Right.
So this class will get some idea, and then we will give you sort of syllabus, right? Yeah, with page numbers.
어디하고 단다 송사를 어디는 진짜 보다 단다 삼삼라는 춘종들라야 즉 쉐야 되는데 망고지 용서를 삼삼들은 되는 시간다 때문에 이치는 다른데 그것을 수사라고 하는데 저거.
No, so we'll follow that format, and sometimes he was saying sometimes when he goes through the whole kind of paragraph seems like there's nothing to add, but sometimes for small thing it needs explanation, so we would do that. Yeah. Any other questions or comments or maybe suggestions? Shepa. Shepa the logo thing. Selva. Selva. When the sitting page down or the two other kumoso. So yes, yeah, these two, probably you have heard often. Clarity. In this book, it uses just word clear, and then if you look into, you will find several different meaning of what clear or clarity means. And then the other part is awareness, or I guess knowledge is the other word. Shebala the kishila yugul teve the line betange. Sewala the shewana shibesha shewa the sewala. 근데 그 디나로 돼도 슈글 레이도 된다.
어디 제시는 데 단다데 도도데 첨바데 예와데라랑 아니 만들어서 뭐 어디 제라니 와라니 천일레 kopti koptulaini wanted to issue.
So here you were saying just try to maybe have that kind of understanding, but the more detail will come later. Actually, it's right on page 41. Talks about different meaning or what clear itself means in Tibetan context, selva. So it has Sanskrit word, English word as well, and different selva like the Tanda Dhamma is just 1, 2, 3, at least 3 different interpretation of what clear or clarity means. 진짜로 슈군이 숨숨
아마 다칸다게 디치오에 대한 서수단한 되게 매년 되다 보면 냄새스럽습니다.
Yeah. Any other questions?
아니 레기실은 더버더
제 도마는 이제 슈글 슈즈 디버들.
제가
시드 샤버들.
일단은
근데
뭐 이제는 뭐 맞으면 보시면 저 되면은 어떻게
so we stop at 4.
기다려 좋아 가지 스콜라 타나 되게 이나네 즉 강도 영화 시와데 갑도 되지 마시와이나 양게 선녀들라 되지
Yes.
디지고 대화 가져다 디 용어이나 간절라지 야마 고도 배야당 즉 데레라 펜도 용거래서
Yes. So generally, when you ask question, of course, you can ask any questions, of Buddhism, and if Geshe don't have an answer immediately, he will, make a note and come back next time with. So the more questions that we have, the more kind of, it benefits all of us. Yeah. Yes. So if no questions, we will conclude with the dedication prayer. Sure.
Big question.
Mhm.
The relationship between consciousness and the brain.
Okay.
Consciousness being immaterial.
Mhm.
Material.
Mm-hmm.
Geshe talked a little bit about how the two interact.
Mm-hmm.
He's thinking, it's very complex.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Sheba lebe baral jawa khare orelado. Sheba ko sungmero.
제제
Da leba de sungde de kunyi baral jawa khare.
다 믹스기 딜랑에 세가다 단다 슈토야 스케민도 지단에 단다 셰바 지단에 냐마다 세리바디 레바 켈랭 거라 수신 레바디 수신제 셰바디 에네 수메제 다 대상한다가 좀 남바상제 받아 트레이닝 저와 차원도 상반이 다 세리바 망보시게 다 레바 마인바 레바레 셴바제네 레가 지금 요와 다나진 무슨 켈레나 말레나 데지 요와 할람다 직 제바치 용기 요와네 저직 숭엔데네 로즈 원데지 슈나
So consciousness and brain, or mind and brain. What is clear is that in Buddhism, consciousness has no form, right? Form and shape, but the brain having it. So in much earlier, in scientific understanding, they don't construe consciousness separate from brain. But after many discussions with he was talking about mind and life in the scientists seems to be coming to the point where they do agree that there is something other than just a brain matter. So that was quite kind of clear. Now, any shimba?
에 fuchuwa de tila
Kunyi
kita tila
dingi jawa khare re lo sheba da lebe parala.
스쿼타 딜 믹스기 당할서가 슈다 스미도 탄다 셰바당
Sheba da leba chik sujin ji chik sume lo kunyi jawa khande re lo.
당한 레바당 딩가 디 저와 디레 디세네 탄다가 믹스기 슈다 스케멘 동이셜레 이체고세 슈샤나 비오
Los, So yeah, you are right, because you said it's a big question. So he will come back with the more precise. Yeah, sure.
So you to think of the physical mind and then the non-physical mind like a piano. When somebody's playing the keys, it sends data to the non-physical mind. But when you die, these two detach, and then you're free to have direct perception of emptiness. But what matter is,
Yeah.
what matter is that it's a amplification of subtle mind. As matter condenses, it amplifies. So it's essentially your experience is amplified. So when your physical form is still communicating with the non-physical mind, you're experiencing heightened senses, heightened information, just like when somebody's playing on the piano. But an electric piano, when you pull the plug and there's no more electricity running through it, it's free to experience everything.
Morris says, but there are those who have direct perception of emptiness while still in a body, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's possible. It's not easy to have.
하고 마서 알레 고랑이 참지로 시에서 대신 로제로 당근나라 로제고 그 네메시오라 네메데 냄스는 그 나로를 게 칼로르 게네 되는 거로 대신에 이 차상 고쳐 모서 로든 되어지 근데 셰바다 가서 레베 바라 저와디 What did Laura said?
Well, still a lot. For your, yeah, sure. For the kind
What has that to do with the connection between brain and mind?
It was in response to Chris's.
Oh, okay. Chris, Chris,
Death doesn't produce direct perception of emptiness. It's when the mind settles
yeah. that-
through. It's like when you put your hand into a pot of hot water.
셰바 참에
and you
동이 더
pull it
여러
out.
근데 지금 요 다디 시부터 지단다 되는 시때 셀레티 지부터 서 거기는 지금 요래 결혼 직조단도 하고요.
Useless. Once, go ahead, yeah. What do you?
Infants don't linger around the body for 49 days.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They're already ravenous for new experience.
Okay.
They're addicted to incarnation.
Mm-hmm.
So the a spirit that's integrated into the body and dies early in infant stage, they don't linger around the body for 49 days. They're ravenous to have new experience. They will leave the body and they will go find a new incarnation of being.
Vale, 하고서 이제 셰바디 되고 말해서 십시님은 십시고.
그때 따로 그렇게 이제 십시고는 다디 슈마
Yes. Okay.
당원도 뒤죠.
Yes, we'll do.
Did we start? Did you get there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sanjo sanjo rambo je ma je ba na men je jo je ge wa nyam ba me ba ya ko ne kon do be wa ri sho ka re ra de go le jin gan de pe na de wa ma le jong we ne je le je wa de je ge zo ye cha be si de ba do de jo je Wa ye je tra jen ba da kon do sam bo de ya de jen de da kun ge je so da ro jen ge wa de da tham je ra do de zum she be ge wa tham je ge ngo wa kan la jo do nga ba de da jen ge
sa wan di de
sam bo jen je ra do ngo wa ri ki
Thank you. 이제 재능 되니.
inji don de Jewel Bodhijita that has not arisen, arise and go, and may that which is arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. In the land encircled by snow white mountains, the soul of all happiness and benefit. Both near person generously in your to place remain until samsara ends. Just as the Bodhisattva Manjushri attain omniscience and summoned about the truth. So now do I dedicate these males to train and follow in their footsteps. As all the vigorous Buddhas of the past, present, and future, praise dedication is supreme. So now I dedicate these also my merit for all beings to perfect Buddha actions. Sounds all.
Sorry. Listen.